So this is my model, Amari L. We're going to be doing the Fall Smoky Eye Glam on her today. So I start off with priming the face with some witch hazel. I use the Dickinson's brand, but any brand should work well. I just wipe that all over her face with a cotton pad to just remove any excess oils. So I'm applying some foundation on her forehead. I'm using the NARS Natural Longwear Radiant Foundation. I mixed 3 together, Cadiz, Balim, and Marquise's. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. So I start off by just taking the foundation and shaping the top of her brows. This will help us later on when we are going in to fill in her brows. So now I am applying some calamine lotion. This is the brand I use. You can get it off of Amazon. This is going to be my primer. It's going to mattify the face and give me a smooth base. I only focus this in the center because that is where most of the product is going to lie, and a lot of the times clients get oily around this area around their nose. So I apply that everywhere and blend that in. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to apply some of the foundation on the bottom half of her face. And then when I see that it is dry, I'm going to apply that all over. You will know when the calamine lotion is dry when it looks very chalky. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just taking a small detail brush to just apply that all over her face before I go in to blend it out. So to blend out her foundation, I'm using the Morphe E63 brush. I'm just patting in that foundation and slightly swiping it, but not too much. I just pat it in, make sure it is into her skin. It is blended very well, because when you finish your foundation, you want it to look like her skin. You want it to be a flawless finish. So I just go around patting that in. I work on one half of the face and then I move to the other. So now I am going in with some concealer to brighten up the center parts of her face. I am using the Tarte Shape Tape in Tan Sand. I use the Ultra Creamy because the original brand dries down very quickly and it makes it a little bit harder to blend out. So I really like the Ultra Creamy version of the Shape Tape, and I'm applying that under her eyes. I'm going to dot a little bit on her chin. I'm going to put that on her upper lip. I'm going to do the bridge of the nose. I just make a straight, either you can do a straight line or a dotted line when doing the nose, and then I just put some on the center of her forehead. The smaller the line is, the more snatched the nose will be. I don't really like really small narrow noses. It just depends on the person's nose, the shape of their nose, how small I do it, but I do like it to look somewhat natural when I'm doing it. While I'm waiting for the concealer to dry, I'm going in with the Ultra Slim Brow Pencil in dark brown to start filling in her brows. I just start off with the top of her brow to make the shape that I like. And when we did the foundation earlier, it already kind of made an outline for me. So I just go off that and just do hair-like strokes to fill in the brows. Just continue to fill in and brush out the product till I get the look that I want. And when I get to the front of the brow, I just do upward strokes to make it look like pieces of hair in the front, so it'll give a more natural brow. So now that the brows are filled in, I'm going back in with that foundation brush to blend out the edges of the concealer. This just makes sure that the concealer is blended in and there are no harsh lines. And the brush also has some leftover foundation on it, so it'll just help blend the two together really seamlessly. And I just go in and pat in all the areas. I do the outsides of the under eye concealer. I just go ahead and press the forehead and the chin all the way in, since there's not a lot of area to cover. And go ahead and go over her upper lip, and then I go in with the Beauty Blender to get on the inner corners of her eyes and blend out the rest of that. Now I'm taking my Real Techniques beauty sponge and just patting in the rest of that product. I pat very lightly because, like I said earlier, the sponge tends to pick up some product, so you don't want to press too hard because that will leave the face with patchiness. So I just continue to pat back and forth. I like to start in the inner corner, then go outwards towards the edge of her face, and then just make sure everything is blended, just going over what I blended in with the foundation brush and just blending it to my liking. And also, when doing the nose, you want to squeeze the sponge as hard as you can to make sure it's very narrow and you keep that straight, precise line that you created. And before you go in with setting powder, you want to tell the client to look up and make sure you blend in all of the creases that are underneath her eyes. So when you set it with the powder, it looks flawless and there are no creases. I'll be using the Laura Mercier translucent powder. And I'm using a different sponge. It's the Real Techniques Miracle Powder Sponge. It's specifically for powder. And it doesn't absorb any of the product. It literally just sits on top. So you are placing all the product that you picked up directly onto her face. So I just lightly tap that over everywhere I place concealer. Make sure I really press it in and get it into the skin. I don't bake. I don't really feel like it's necessary, but whatever powder is left over on her face, I do dust it away a little bit later. And while doing this, you want to make sure you continue to have enough of this translucent powder on your sponge. Other than that, you'll be picking up wet concealer, which will also create patchiness. So make sure when you're pressing it in, if you see that you don't have any more powder on your sponge, you want to go back in and pick up some more powder and then press that in some more. And I also like to take some underneath the cheek to really just shape the jaw and set underneath where we will be placing the contour. And this also just gives me an outline of how, where exactly I need to place the contour. So as y'all see, I didn't purposely do this. It kind of just came out like this, but there's a sharp line on one side, but there isn't on the other. It just depends on your preference on how, if you want that sharp look for the contour, but just make sure that it is set underneath. And the same thing with the nose, how we blended it out by squeezing the sponge and making sure that the part of the sponge that is touching the face is really narrow. You do the same thing with the powder and just press all of that product in as well. Now it is time for contour. I am using the Black Radiance True Complexion Palette in medium to dark, and I'm using the Sculpt shade in the middle. And I'm just taking an angle brush and patting that in on the hollows of her cheeks and swiping upward to make sure it blends with the concealer and there's no harsh lines and everything's just seamless and nice and blended. And you can build it up as much as you like depending on how intense you want the contour to be. But I always say start light and then build up. And I'm just going to do that on both sides of her face to give her face some kind of shape, because without contour you just kind of have a round face. Contour is meant to shape the face after placing all the concealers and powders and just bring some dimension into the face. So now I'm taking a dense, it's a small rounded brush to go ahead and shape the sides of her nose. I like to bring the contour all the way up into the beginning of the eyebrow just so it'll be seamless and it won't look like her nose is just cut off in the middle. And I just do up and down motions just to place the product, and then to blend it in with the concealer that we place in the center, I do circular motions inward. And I just do that for both sides, and I also place some underneath her nose, because wherever you place the contour, you have to cut the nose off at some point. So either if you want it to sit up a little higher, you'll cut her nose off a little higher. But since I want to go for this more of a narrow and sleek nose, I'm just gonna place a little bit on underneath her nose. Now it's time for one of my favorite parts, blush. I'm using the Juvia's Place Warrior 2 palette, and I'm taking these two shades in the center, the orange and the pink shade, mixing those together and placing those on the high points of her cheeks. I'm a girl who loves blush, so my blush is always going to be intense. I feel like orange blushes are just so pretty on every skin tone, but it is a little bit too orange, so I wanted to put some of that pink in there to kind of soften it up a little bit. And I just blend it to my liking. And now I am dusting away any of that excess powder, any excess translucent powder that I have under the eyes before I go in with a brightener powder just to brighten up her under eyes a little bit more. I'll be using the Morphe Complexion Palette. I believe this one is medium to dark, and then I use the brightener shade, which is just a yellow that it just almost gives the effect of bacon without drying out the face, I feel. So I just swipe that underneath the eyes, a little bit on the top lip, just on the center parts of her face that are going to be shown more. And I also take this on the center of her nose just to intensify the nose contour. now that we have the face all together, it is time to conceal the eyebrows. I'm using that same concealer that we used, the Tan Sand, to just shape her brows. I just go off of the shape, make sure that I sharpen up her brows as precise as I can, and blend that out onto the eyelid because it's also going to be our eyeshadow base. You want to make sure that the brush you're using to conceal her eyebrows is very flat and very thin. It makes it easier when shaping out the brows. But now I'm just taking a fluffy round brush to go ahead and pat that concealer in. I do like to anytime I use concealer, I do like to let it dry down a bit so it won't be moving as much and it'll be more stuck in its place, and then it'll also give a full coverage effect. So I'm just blending this out and preparing the lids for eyeshadow. So now I'll just add a little bit more color to her face. After that translucent powder, I'm taking the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in Dark Tan. You want to use a powder that's similar to the foundation shade, and I'm just patting that over the bottom half of her face, a little bit in the center of her face, and this will also help prevent flashback. Now we are moving on to lips. I'm just taking a makeup wipe to wipe off any excess product. With the LA Girl Perfect Precision eyeliner pencil in brown. Yes, it's an eyeliner pencil, but they are the same. I feel like this is the perfect brown. It's like a warm brown. It's not like a dark ashy brown, and it blends well when creating nude lips. So I just take that and make an outline of her lips. And I have her to just blot her lips together to really rub that liner in so it isn't just a harsh line when I go in to apply the liquid lipstick. So for liquid lipstick, I actually put together the Morphe liquid lipstick in True Story, and I mixed in tan sand to create this nude, and it is so pretty. I don't really like how True Story looks by itself because it gives a really orange tone, but when I mixed in that concealer, it kind of brightened it up and made it more of a nude. So I just take a really small, precise brush and apply that on her lips, have her blot her lips together to blend it for me. And I just continue on with my brush as well, just to get those corners and edges. And for gloss, I'm using the Ulta Jelly Gloss in Starfish. It has like a peachy tone to it, which I like, and it goes over the lips really nice, and it's not a sticky lip gloss, and it has a nice shine on it. This is the only gloss I use unless I want to use a clear gloss, but this is like the perfect gloss for any lip. Now we're going on to eyeliner. I'm using the Inglot gel liner, and I think it's 777. And I'm taking, these are actually paint brushes. I like to use paint brushes for detail work like this. And I just take it and I drag it along her waterline. This is a lot better. In the beginning, I was using liquid liners, which is terrible because they tend to run and bleed, and there's a possibility that it can get in the client's eye and burn. So gel liner is a lot better, and it dries a lot quicker. And I'm also taking that just on the inner corner of her eyes and dragging it a little bit upwards. Now it is time for the biggest event. We're doing eyeshadow. I am using that same Juvia's Place palette I use for blush, but I'll be using the light brown shade and that orange shade in the beginning, just to do just for her crease color. Make sure I'm blending those two together, because the brown is a nice color, but I also wanted it to be warm in a way, so incorporating that orange really kind of brightened up the color. So I'm taking that, I'm placing that on her crease. I like to place the color on the lid first, and then I'll start to drag the product across the eyebrow in windshield wiper motions, and also in circular motions, just to help it blend a little bit better. And then as I build up the product, when I'm done blending, I like to go ahead and also blend out the outer corner. So that's where the circular motion comes in to play. And I do that on both of her eyes. I believe I did use some of that red too, but not too much of the red, because y'all see how the eyes looking a little burgundy. I did use some of the red that's in that palette as well. for her lid color, I'm just using that dark brown, and I'm just patting that across her lid. I'm taking some of that dark brown and the gray shade that's next to it, but not too much because I don't want it too dark. I still want it to look brown. And I'm just placing that in her crease. And once I have the product placed, I'm going to do those circular motions and windshield wiper motions to blend it in with the crease color. Once again, just to give her some eyeliner and just know where I'm placing the eyelashes, I like to do just a small line on top of her lash line with that same Inglot gel liner. Set her face with the Urban Decay All Nighter Setting Spray. I really drench the face to make sure it gets in there, and use my fan to help it dry. It helps the product dry faster and it becomes more tacky, so you can literally just place the lash on her eye rather than applying it on the lash, having to wait for it to dry. This speeds up the process. So I'm using my lashes from my brand. I'll have my website link below, but they are my Drama Queen lashes. They're nice and fluffy, and it just went with the look very well. It's still dramatic, but not too much. smoke out her waterline to also give her a little bit more dimension in that smoky eye effect. I also love bottom mascara. Like it takes the look up a notch. Like I just feel like it's needed in all looks. So I'm just taking some I believe this is the Essence mascara. It's a brand that's at Ulta. Just applying that on her lashes and making sure that they are coated nicely, and this completes the look. Y'all see, she loved it. It was so pretty.